I want to tell you about something I found while studying Earth that I genuinely could not explain for a long time. There is a species here, one species out of all the ones I have studied, that sleeps enough and wakes up exhausted. Not occasionally, not after a bad night, regularly, consistently, a full night of sleep and then tired, sometimes more tired than before they went to bed. On every other planet I have visited, when an organism rests for its biologically required period, it wakes restored. That is what rest is for. But somewhere on this planet, something went wrong with the equation, and I spent a significant amount of time figuring out what. What I found was not a sleep problem. It was something much more interesting. Subscribe if you want to know what I found. Like this video if you have ever woken up from 8 hours of sleep and immediately needed a coffee to function. And comment, what time did you go to bed last night and how do you feel right now? I am collecting data. The data set is already very large. Here is what I understood about sleep before I understood what was happening on Earth. Sleep is not passive rest. It is not the absence of activity. During sleep, the human body is running one of its most intensive maintenance programs. The brain is clearing waste products, memories are being processed and stored, hormones are being reset, tissue is being repaired, the immune system is running updates. Sleep is less like turning off a computer and more like running the overnight backup. Intensive, essential, and only possible when the active processes are suspended. This system works. It has worked for hundreds of thousands of years. The reason it stops working is not because the system is broken. It is because of what is happening during the hours before sleep and during sleep itself that the system is no longer allowed to complete. The key word here is cortisol. Cortisol follows a natural daily rhythm. It is supposed to peak in the morning. This is what wakes you up, sharpens your focus, gets you moving. Then it gradually decreases through the day, dropping low in the evening to prepare your body for sleep. That drop is the signal. Low cortisol means safe to rest, safe to repair, safe to run the overnight program. When cortisol stays elevated in the evening, which it does under chronic stress, that signal never comes. The body is in a mild state of alert through the night. The maintenance program runs, but it runs on a system that hasn't fully powered down. The backup runs while the computer is still open. The quality is reduced. You wake up with work unfinished. Here is what makes this genuinely strange. Humans often describe this state as feeling wired and tired simultaneously. Exhausted but unable to fully rest. Sleepy but not deeply asleep. The UCLA Health Research describes it precisely. A dysregulated HPA axis produces high cortisol at night, causing that specific wired feeling, while a blunted morning cortisol response leaves you groggy and unreachable after waking. You needed the cortisol to drop last night so you could actually restore. It didn't drop, so you didn't fully restore. So now you need coffee to produce artificially what your morning cortisol was supposed to provide naturally. And the coffee keeps the cortisol elevated. And tonight, the cycle repeats. This is not a sleep disorder. This is a stress response that never turns off. And the distinction matters enormously because if you treat it as a sleep problem, you try to fix the sleep, you track your sleep cycles, you get a better mattress, you take melatonin, you set a bedtime. None of this touches the actual mechanism, which is running 24 hours a day regardless of what your mattress looks like. So why is the cortisol elevated in the first place? This is where the modern environment does what it does best. It provides a perfect, continuous, unending supply of low-grade threat signals. I have talked in other videos about the stress system that cannot tell the difference between a lion and a work email. The same mechanism applies here, but the timeline extends. It is not just that your boss sends a message at 9 p.m. and your body floods with adrenaline. It is that the cumulative load of a day, the unfinished tasks, the unanswered messages, the decisions made, the social evaluations processed, the noise, the screens, the information, keeps the system in a state of mild activation that never fully resolves. Human bodies were designed to recover from stress events. A lion appears, the system activates, the situation resolves, the system returns to baseline. What the modern environment produces instead is not a series of stress events with recovery in between. It is a continuous, low-level stress state with no clear resolution point. The system activates at 8 a.m. and does not deactivate until sometimes deep sleep takes over if the cortisol lets it, and increasingly it doesn't. A 2024 meta-analysis in the Endocrine Journal confirmed that sleep deprivation significantly disrupts the cortisol cycle. But what researchers also note is that the causality runs in both directions. Poor sleep raises cortisol. Elevated cortisol worsens sleep. Once the cycle starts, it is self-reinforcing. Each night of incomplete rest raises the baseline stress level slightly. Each raised baseline makes the next night's rest slightly less complete. The average human who describes themselves as chronically tired is often not describing a sleep quantity problem. They are describing this cycle, running, compounding, unaddressed. Here is the part that I find most interesting from a research perspective. The interventions that actually break this cycle have almost nothing to do with sleep directly. They involve reducing the cortisol load during waking hours, which means addressing the source of the chronic activation rather than managing its effects at night. What the research shows works, reducing the volume of unresolved demands that the brain carries into the evening. Exposure to natural light in the morning, which anchors the cortisol curve and helps it drop correctly at night. Physical movement, not because it burns energy, but because it is one of the few signals that tells the nervous system the threat was resolved and the body survived. Time without input, without screens, without the next notification arriving before the previous one was processed. None of this is revolutionary information. Most humans know it. The gap between knowing and doing it is itself a kind of chronic stress. On my planet, when the maintenance program is not completing, we fix the schedule around the maintenance program. On Earth, the maintenance program is squeezed into whatever space is left after everything else is done. There is usually not much space left. Your body is not bad at sleeping. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, staying alert in an environment that keeps producing alert signals. The problem is not the system. The problem is that the environment it evolved for had nights that were actually quiet, actual darkness, actual silence, actual absence of the next thing requiring a response. Those nights are harder to find now. I'm still studying this. The data keeps coming in. The data set on tired humans who slept enough is, as I mentioned, already very large.